Welcome to Recovery His Way. I'm your host, Tom Reynolds. We're blessed to have Aaron Smith with us today. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you.
We've been discussing the 12 steps of AA, and we've been we've dissected them a number of ways. We've looked at them in terms of how they relate to the Bible and Scripture and biblical teaching, and then we've kind of taken that and we've been talking to various people about how they have seen those biblical teachings and the practice of those steps kind of be worked out in their own experience, and kind of look at the real time, boots on the ground, kind of what does this step look like. And so today we're going to be talking about the 8th step. We'll get into more of that in a minute. But, one of the things I was excited to have you today, this weekend you're going to be graduating your 9 months here at His Way.
Right.
And so congratulations on that. I know you're excited and your family is excited about that achievement.
Oh, yeah.
And then also you're planning on staying a part of our advanced recovery group and staying plugged in and involved in continuing the program and giving back to the guys here and continue to work on your own recovery as you do that. And the importance of that, I think, is critical to recovery. But I guess to get us started, I'd like maybe you to share with me and with our audience just kind of what your recovery journeys look like.
Well, I was raised in the church. My grandfather's an elder in one church here local. The other one was a deacon in Church of Christ. And my parents met at church. It goes all the way back. So I had a good foundation of, I knew of God very strong, but I feel like I didn't know God really until I got here.
Okay.
Or start that personal relationship with Him.
Right.
I was, I was raised in the church. I didn't start using up until my teenage years. My parents got divorced, and through the relationships that they went through after that, I found myself not wanting to be home. So there's nothing, nothing that I have a grudge against them or anything. It's just at that time, I was young,
Right.
and impressionable, and all that was new to me. I didn't.
Right.
I was looking for comfort somewhere,
Right,
and it wasn't at home.
Right.
Not through any fault of theirs, really. Just
Sure.
My parents, were always great. Some best childhood kid could ask for, really.
Right.
So I started hanging out with. I quit sports. Played basketball, football, all that stuff, and I started smoking weed, probably 14, 15 years old. And that, of course, my grades, I had a full scholarship to Duke at one time, academic, blew that, just everything, I didn't have the care to do it. It was rebellious. But after I moved out, me and my first wife, we were high school sweethearts, and we did, smoked weed, took pills, stuff like that, experimented in high school. I moved out when I was 19, got married, and started drinking, because I was out on my own. And that's probably when everything turned from having fun or experimenting to really a problem,
Right.
Getting away when the drinking started in excess. It really took a turn for the worse.
Right.
And it was more of a problem. So, of course, that snowballed into other problems, and that caused other problems. Divorce, got a couple of those.
How old were you when you first got divorced?
The first one we separated because of drugs. I had chose to get married and start a family and was on that route. She had some demons that were much bigger than mine, which is why we got divorced. And she's not living right now. Those eventually took their toll. She died at 27.
Wow.
So that and that took a toll on me. Some would say I made the right decision because look what happened, and then if you love somebody, you're always gonna. I mean, still, even today, as I've progressed and learned about addiction and conquering it and stuff, there are things that I know now at 40 that I didn't know at 25.
Right,
so
right.
there's always going to be that feeling that, well, there's something else I could have done.
Sure.
Even though we all make our own choices.
Right,
so,
right.
So, at one point I went through another bad relationship. After that, I went to jail, did a pretty good stretch in jail. I got out. I said, I got to do something different. So, called my dad, swallowed my pride, and ended up getting my 10 years after I got out of high school, dropped out. I ended up getting my GED and started college, and everything was going good. Met my second wife, had my son. We got married, had my son. Spent most of my time coaching ball at the ball field, doing homework stuff, being a dad. That was my purpose. That's, all I ever really wanted to be. And then started drinking again, because I wasn't happy with our marriage. I love being a dad. The kids, that was great, but being her,
Right.
But I tried to do the right thing for the kids, And so after we split up, had some custody problems, nosedive again, and basically I ended up quitting. I stopped drinking. It's been about 7-8 years. My dad passed away. That attributed to the nosedive, the divorce, and then my grandfather. So I ended up quitting. Right after my grandfather died, I quit drinking. And there was about a year gap, and I started doing meth. And then that just, I had 4 DUIs previously from drinking. I thought it ruined my life. Man, I'll tell you what, meth brought the pain. It really blew up my charges. Criminal legal trouble increased from misdemeanors to felonies. A lot of way more isolation with my family. And I'd heard on one of those stints, Justin Parker, which seen him in jail, and he had told me about this place. So I always kind of knew that I was going to come here. I'd grown up with Justin at North Parkway Church of Christ, and I knew I was going to come here somehow, some way. And when I did, it was going to be the turning point. I didn't know how, and obviously I wasn't going to do it in the middle of addiction. I was going to have to be backed up in a corner, pretty much.
Okay.
And so that God put that in my life.
He has a way of doing that.
Well, he just let me do it, and so I did that. And I got furloughed here, and I've seen all these people from my life, like your daughter-in-law. I grew up with her, her brother, and her parents out in church when I was a teenager before all this started. Barry Johnson, the house, Jeff Johnson, same thing. The first people I seen when I got on the way here was Mike Marquetta and Blake Peppers. I go back to high school with them, so it was God kind of showing me that I was at the right place. And man, it's been a blessing here. Me and my mom weren't on speaking terms before I came here. And I had somebody get in touch with her and tell her about this place, and she was all for it, and still is. She says she got her son back. But since I've been here, and I kind of made that change before when I was in jail, because like I said, I knew when I did come here, I was changed. There was no turning back. I've had a good example set for me all my life, from my family. I know what God in your life. I know how that turns out. Right. So I made that commitment before I even got here, and I've stuck to it. As the 9 months, 9-month program has dwindled down, I kind of felt like, man, I'm not done here yet, and it's not so much for me that I'm staying, but these other guys and helping, giving what example and what I've learned throughout this process to some of those guys, and maybe that can change some lives and their families, and and spread that on out, man.
Sounds like, and for a lot of us, and I appreciate what you're saying, you made a decision before you ever got here that, and you expected something to happen here. What did you expect to happen here, and what happened here?
I don't really know what I kind of knew what this place was about per se, but we've all got our own personal stories of what God's done for us and signs He showed us, and until you experience that, you just really don't know. It's not that we want to cram Jesus down your throat, but man, if you just knew what those chains breaking and what freedom and hope and love and everything that comes with it, man, you'd be telling everybody too.
Right.
So I don't really know what I expected, but I knew that it was going to be great, and I knew that I was going to, I was tired of the way things had been going.
Right.
And there was only one choice, and I knew God was here. I knew that, and from the second I walked in these doors, and you can feel it. The staff, the process is amazing. It's really in depth. I was a psychology major in college, so just really the depth of the process and how it's allotted throughout the 9 months is just, it's amazing. And if you put the story of Jesus and the woman grabbing the garments, if you just grab them coattails and hold on, man, he can do it for you. You got to be committed. I really don't know what I expected, but
Right.
I got it. I got way more. That's scriptural too. You got way more than what we can imagine.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I know we're talking here about the 8th step, so I want to kind of take us there. The 8th step talks about making a list of all the persons we've harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. The first 3 steps, as we've kind of talked about, the first 3 steps kind of deal with kind of reconciling with God, kind of running out of yourself, kind of realizing you need for God, coming to that decision to submit ourselves to Him. Then really the next few steps had to do with kind of reconciling and making peace with yourself, kind of making a list of the things that you've done to harm others, beginning to become aware of those things and confess those things, admit those things. And now as we hit step 7 and 8 here, I guess step 8, we're starting to think about making peace with other people. Now we've kind of moved to the next step, which is finally, and I think it's an important process. It takes a long time to work because a lot of times what we want to do is we want to kind of get in recovery, get a couple, we can have a couple positive meetings, we kind of make changes, then we're going to run out and reconcile with the world, make everything better with everybody and all that kind of stuff. And that usually doesn't tend to work very well because we haven't really reconciled with ourselves or with God yet to even be ready for that. So working this process and coming to the point of now saying, okay, I'm going to make a list of people that I'm willing to make amends to and kind of start that process of preparing myself for that. I'm interested in kind of what does that look like for you? What has kind of brought you to that? How have you worked that process yourself?
Get prepared to make the list. Well, as you said, and I love that you said that because I was looking through the Spiritual Journey book earlier just to go over step 8. One thing that I hadn't noticed it before, it said amends are principally for our own benefit. They're not for the other person. And I didn't really notice in that book, but that's exactly, I knew that through doing that. But I've making, I think we've talked about this before because I wanted to either do step 4 or step 8. I think they kind of go together. I found myself doing a much more in-depth moral inventory on myself, making a list of people who I had wrong. Because the paradigm shift that happens through this 9-month process, I didn't see a lot of things the way I see them now. So I've seen some wrongs that I didn't even know that I had done, whether it be they've got material, spiritual, and moral. So some of those things, like being absent from my son's life for the last few years, that was obvious. But there's some other things that I didn't realize I had wronged, and those people may not either.
Right.
So it's just looking at things through a whole different lens.
Right. Well, you brought up a good point, because you mentioned, step 4, you make an inventory, you make a list. Then step 8, you're making another list.
Right.
How are those lists different? I mean, what makes them different? You made it sound like in some ways that the step 4 list is kind of almost like a beginning point, and then the step 8 list is almost a deeper dive into what we started with in step 4. But
I mean, it was that way for me. I don't know if that's a common thread in everybody's journey, but it definitely was. I thought I was pretty in tune with myself, a fearless moral inventory. And it's not to say that I didn't do that before, but there was some growing maybe that I did in between steps 4 and 8,
right.
To allow me to see some things different. And and they're not. I guess it's more particular. Some of the qualities I had listed, but the actual events, the particulars. I don't think the qualities that I had listed on the moral inventory changed, but it was really an eye-opener to see the depth and the ripple effect of those two.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know this step, I mean, really when you do step 4, then you're talking about going and confessing it to God, yourself, and another person, right?
Right?
Step 8, now we're making a list in which we're going to go and speak specifically to other people and that type of thing about that process. So I like what you said about this time. It's kind of like what you said earlier. It's like, what you know at 40 is a lot different than what you at 25,
right.
And you wish you would have known that then, but there was no way for you to. And what you understood in step 8, in terms of what your inventory looks like,
right.
is a lot different than what you were at step 4 because of that maturity and that growth process as well.
Exactly.
So I think all of us go through that. And of course we can get trapped. You mentioned earlier, you can get trapped in the guilt trip, right. Of thinking, well, if I only did what I was 20, what I'm doing 40, if I only did that when I was 25, all these things. Well, there's no way you can do at 25 what you know at 40, because you know it. There's no way. There's an impossibility to do. So extending grace to yourself, God's extending grace to us. I mean, He understands our development process, just like a parent.
And chances are, when I was 25, somebody probably told me that, but I wouldn't listen.
Right, sure. Well, I mean, a parent who's training their child, right, understands that, one day they'll be riding a 2-wheel bike, but right now they need training wheels, and they don't get mad at them because they need training wheels. They're just not ready and it's just a process, right? You got to work that process, and everything's about that. And so if you're a parent, as a parent, you can understand the growth process of your child. Right. How much more will God not understand the fact that as His child, your growth process when you're 25 to 40 is going to be different to what you're able to do now. Right. Far different than what you were able to pull off when you're 25 years old.
I've made that similar statement to the guys out here is what kind of love God has for us, man. Because He knows, even when we don't know, He knows exactly what we need, whether it be tough love or what that might be. He knows exactly what we need, man. What kind of love is that?
Right.
That is the most high love. Right. As a parent,
Right. Yeah. So in this step, it says that we make a list of the person we've harmed and become willing to make amends. So just what is making amends? What is an amends? What is that?
Well, it's similar to, I associated it with, we were talking about repentance last night, true repentance and true sorrow, and to admit an admittance of your wrongs and stating those. A lot of mine, with as far as my family went, I just had to show change behavior because they've heard more of the words than anybody has heard throughout this journey. But just owning up to what you have done, kind of describing your mindset. Some of those things seem right at the time, or it may not have been an intentional thing, but like the ripple effect and collateral damage and stuff. So just showing people that whoever it might be, just that you taking ownership and that it meant something to you. I think that's the biggest part, is whether they know it or not, that it meant something to me, whether it had been 20 years ago, but I still remember it. So I think that has a lot of effect to the other person as well. If that's still bothering me after 10, 15 years and they don't even know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So.
Yeah, most of the time this amends process is, again, like you said, more about you than it is about them. In most cases, a lot of the things we're going to make an amends about, they may not even remember or may not be a significant thing to them, while it's been haunting and tormenting us for whoever knows how long in our life.
And by and large, people have a mindset about you, and that's what they remember about you. So if they might remember that if they have a bad overture towards you, but if they have a good one, they just remember we tend to remember good things. So they probably don't even remember.
Right.
But it's more of a personal thing. If you get it out there, you feel a lot better. I just made amends with my grandmother probably about a month ago. And I had pushed that off for reasons of kind of rejection, not really rejection, but kind of something like that. Maybe I didn't want to hear maybe what she might have to say.
How did it go?
It was great.
Okay.
I felt so good after that. And
how did she respond to you? Was she mad at you? Was she?
No. She was just glad that I come to my senses. It's been a long time coming, and it's always I found we always make things worse in our head than it really is too. But it was great, man. I'm fortunate that God's blessed me to have somebody that was receiving like that and just there with open arms. Just glad, know me better than to define me as the things I did wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's great. So, do you have other amends that you're looking at making still? Is there still some you've kind of held off on or back, kind of been dealing with still, or what? Where are you at on that?
There's a couple. I don't know if I will ever get the chance to do one of them. Not that I don't want to or wouldn't. It's just I don't know if they're regionally or geographically they're not around here, and I don't know that. I don't know how that'll work out. My son's mother's another one, and I don't know how that'll work out either. But it's going to happen. I know that. Whether or not she takes it as well as others, that's up to her. And all I can do is what I can do.
Right. I think that's critically important. So many times we trap ourselves in overanalyzing these steps or stopping short of them because we project what we think the response of others is going to be, and then we justify not taking action in the area because we already have prejudged in our judgmentalism what somebody's going to do and how they're going to respond, so therefore they won't be receptive or it won't go well, so therefore I'm not going to do it. Whereas these steps don't, it's not a condition of controlling outcomes. It's about trusting God to do what he's called me to do and do this process and trust the outcome to God. I mean, your grandmother, loved on you when you talked to her about those things. She didn't rehash them and kind of belabor them and if that has to happen, then God will have you prepared to deal with that when that time comes. Right. I know one of the things about amends is that talk about financial amends. Sometimes most of the time it's about going and just admitting problems and reconciling, but sometimes legitimately things got stolen, more money was borrowed, never paid back, those kind of things. What's the process? I mean, I don't know if you have any financial amends that you're making right now, but what's the process of dealing with just the more physical kind of amends?
I don't. That's the one that I didn't have so much experience with, which is a good thing. Now there's some things like what do you call those? The things that are passed down.
Inheritance? Heirlooms?
Heirlooms.
Okay.
Maybe those kind of things that I've lost them. But as far as thefts or anything, that's not so much me. I would say because I think they're all kind of intertwined as a spiritual a deceit or dishonesty. No matter if it's spiritual, material, whatever.
Right.
I think principally it's the same thing.
Right.
But yeah, I know that's a big one, and it usually involves family and things. So you just got to let God handle that, because all these things are washed away. You've been forgiven,
Right.
And they're never going to happen again. That this is your new creation.
Right.
So
I know, we always talk about, that actions speak louder than words. And so sometimes, and even with your grandmother, the fact that you went to her, that you went and sat down with her and had that encounter, that probably spoke more volumes than what the words were. The fact that you took action, paying off debts and that kind of thing, is more about the action. All of a sudden somebody starts getting, cash in the mail or a check in the mail, paying off some debt. That's a profound impact versus going and kind of giving us a bunch of lip service and telling them about, just actions speak louder than words here. One of the things I want to end on here is I know this is the 8th step. There's 12 of them. So is making amends, making this list, becoming willing, is this a one-time thing? Is this something we do regularly? How is this process worked out more regularly in your life, or is it just you've done that, we're kind of done with that process, and I'm glad that that's over with?
Well, I think, because we continue to grow, I don't think it's the big ones you can take care of, and then there's some that are it may take me some more time to see these.
Right.
I think it's a growing a growth thing, and I think it's something that it'll probably be with you for your lifetime.
Right.
I think it's because we just don't quit doing that.
Right.
I mean,
we may grow, we mature, we may do a lot of things in the past. However, as long as we're on this planet, my guess is I'm going to hurt somebody at some point. I'm going to offend somebody at some point. I'm going to do somebody wrong at some point. I'm going to have to come to the realization that I need to go make that right.
Right, whether you know it or not.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of our cross to carry, and it's how we can maintain our humility and humbleness. I think it's designed that way.
Right.
So, yeah.
So it's an ongoing process that continues to deepen my humility, right? I mean, we've talked about this in this podcast before. How do you grow in humility? I think one of the ways you do it is you practice principles like this. And instead of sitting around thinking that just one day I'm going to read a Bible verse that's making me more humble, or I'm going to read a book that's also going to revolutionize my view of humility, it's working out steps like this where I'm vulnerably putting myself into the grace of others, that then I begin to experience a deeper sense of humility. And as I continue to experience your grandmother's grace and those kind of things, it empowers a greater humility and a greater confidence that I can maybe take that next step or have that next conversation. And if something happens with my grandmother next time, it won't sit for 10 years and fester, right? I'll deal with it right away, because we've kind of cleared the air and we're kind of in a different place with our relationship today than we were. Well, I appreciate, Aaron, everything you shared on this. I'm glad that you're in this process. And I know you got some more people to go see, and I pray that go well, and you continue to work this process. And I'm excited for graduation Sunday. We'll have a great time of celebration.
Great.
And looking forward to you continuing to be an important part of the leadership team here in the months to come. So, Aaron, thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
And thank you for listening and viewing our podcast today, Recovery His Way. If you'd like to learn more about the program and the ministry here, you can check out our website at hiswayinc.org.